Good morning, I am Dr. Teke Apalata. Today we are going to discuss 7 facts about 7 viruses that are associated with cancer. So let me just share my screen with you. I said that we are going to discuss the 7 facts about 7 viruses that are causing cancer, or they are associated with the development of cancer. Once again, I am Dr. Teke Apalata. I am a specialist in clinical microbiology. So what are the 7 viruses that we call 7 oncogenic viruses? Because those are the 7 viruses that are associated with the development of cancer. The first one is human herpes virus 8 that we call HHV8. It is also known as a Kaposissarcoma associated virus. So this is number 1. The second one is Epstein-Barr virus that we also call EBV. It's also a virus that is associated with the development of cancer. Then we have a human papilloma virus known as HPV. That is number 3. Number 4, we have hepatitis B virus. Number 5, we have marker cell polyoma virus, MCP. So those 5 viruses are known as DNA viruses. It means that in the nucleic acid of the virus, it is a DNA. Then the 2 remaining viruses, hepatitis C virus and the human T-cell lymphotropic virus, known also as HTLV type 1, those 2 are what we call RNA viruses. It means that in the nucleic acid of the virus, it's an RNA instead of a DNA. So those are the 7 viruses that are associated with the development of cancer in human being. So, what are those cancers that are associated with those 7 viruses? First, it's EBV, or Epstein-Barr virus. This virus was discovered in 1964. We say that it's a DNA virus, but it's mainly associated with a type of 3 types of cancer. We have acute lymphoma. We will see more details on those cancers. Diffuse large B-cell lymphoma and Hodgkin lymphoma. So those 3 types of cancers are associated with Epstein-Barr virus. Then hepatitis B virus, it's associated with hepatocellular carcinoma, that is the cancer of the liver. We will also discuss about that. Then we have HTLV type 1 is associated with adult T-cell leukemia, that is another type of cancer involving the blood cells. Then we have a human papilloma virus, or HPV. This is mainly associated with the cervical cancer in women. And we have a squamous cell head and neck cancer. And we have also anal cancer, or we have also vulva cancer. So those are the different types of cancers that are associated with HPV, or human papilloma virus. And hepatitis C is also, like hepatitis B, associated with hepatocellular carcinoma. It means that the cancer of the liver. And we have Kaposissarcoma associated virus that is associated with a cancer called the Kaposissarcoma. And another one is called the primary effusion lymphoma. Then the last one to be discovered, that was the virus discovered in 2008, called the Merkel cell polyoma virus. It's associated with a type of skin cancer called Merkel cell carcinoma. So let's illustrate a bit some of this. So EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, we say that it's associated with 3 types of cancer, and the first one and the most common among children in Africa, it's called Burkitt lymphoma. Burkitt lymphoma, it's what you can see in this child. So Burkitt lymphoma was named after a British surgeon called Dennis Burkitt, who was the first to discover this unusual condition among children in Africa. It was in 1956. And it's very common in young African children, and it is thought to be to have a relationship with malaria in Africa, especially in malaria endemic area. So one of the stipulated mechanisms is that it might be that malaria weakens the immune system of those children, so they are not able to respond appropriately when they are exposed by the EBV virus. So it will then allow the infected B cells that we see here, it allows the infected B cells to become cancerous cells. So about 98% of African cases are associated with this virus, Epstein-Barr virus. It's associated with this type of tumor called Burkitt lymphoma. So the next cancer that is associated with the virus called EBV, it's a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it's a cancer of the lymphatic system. So you will see here, it's characterized by swollen lymph node, especially around the neck. You see here in this patient also swollen lymph node that you can find. So a lymphocyte is a type of white blood cells that will then become affected and causing this type of cancer that we call non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The next one is also caused by EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, is what we call diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. Diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, it's what you can see here. This one and here in this patient. So this is the most common type of non-Hodgkin lymphoma that can be found in United States and in other parts of the world, but mainly it's common in United States of America. So we say that lymphocytes are also a type of blood cells, and the B cells are lymphocytes that make antibodies to fight against infections, and they are important parts of the lymphatic system. So although we can find these much more common in childhood, but what we see is that its occurrence is actually increasing with age. And most patients that we found are over the age of 60 when the diagnosis is made. So you can see that it does not only infect the virus or infect the lymphocyte, but other parts of, there are also extranodal sites. It means that outside the lymph node, there are other areas that are affected, like your gastrointestinal tract can be affected, your testis, your thyroid, your skin, as we can see in this patient, breast, bone, the brain, and any other organ of the body can be affected with this virus. Now, those are the 3 types of cancers that are caused by EBV, Epstein-Barr virus. But here we can see that we also have hepatitis B and hepatitis C viruses that are associated with hepatocellular carcinoma. So the cancer of the liver. This is the case of this patient who has cirrhosis, and then he will then progress to develop a cancer of the liver. So it's very common, primary liver cancer in adults, and the most common cause of death in people with cirrhosis. So it occurs in a setting of chronic liver inflammation and is most closely linked to chronic viral hepatitis infection, mainly I say hepatitis B and hepatitis C. Or sometimes, beside the viral cause, it can also be associated with alcohol or the use of products like that contain like maize. If it's not well stored, it contains what we call aflatoxin. So it can also lead to the cancer of the liver. Then we have another one caused by a virus called HTLV type 1 virus. And this is an adult T-cell leukemia or lymphoma. This is a very rare but often very aggressive type of cancer. And a T-cell lymphoma that can be found in the blood. And when it's in the blood, we call it leukemia. And when it's in the lymph node, we call it lymphoma. But skin can be involved, and you can see here skin rash, very typical skin manifestation, even in this patient here. And this is a much more severe, fast-growing condition. So we have 4 types of this adult T-cell leukemia lymphoma, especially the acute type that develop rapidly, include fatigue, skin rash, and enlarged lymph node, especially in the neck, underarm, and or in the groin area. And we also have, so those 2 types, acute and lymphomatous, they develop very rapidly, but the chronic type and the smoldering type are quite a slow growing type of tumor. So those are associated with the virus that we call HTLV1 virus. Then one of the most commonest cancer found in women, what we call cervical cancer, that you can see here. It's a cancer of the cervix. When you place a speculum through the vaginal canal, you will see, you expose the exocervix, and you can see lesions on the cervix that we call cancer of the cervix. It's associated with a virus called human papillomavirus, or HPV, human papillomavirus. Then we have Kaposissarcoma that is associated with a virus called Kaposissarcoma virus. It's also a type of virus that can form masses in the skin, in the lymph node, and other organ. So you can see here in this patient, and you can see here, those lesions are nodules or blotches that may be red, purple, brown, or black in color, and they are usually papillar. So you can also find in other areas, like here in the mouth, that you can find here, and this patient, you can also see here, those that we call Kaposissarcoma, and it's very popular in HIV infected patients. Then the last one, it's another type of cancer called Merkel cell carcinoma. And Merkel cell carcinoma is associated with Merkel cell polyomavirus. It's a very rare but aggressive condition, and it's able to form a recurring condition, and it can spread very easily, so it can metastasize very easily. And you can see here in this patient, it is located deep in the top layer of the skin. You can see here. And it's usually connected with nerves, and it becomes very sensitive. So those are the type of cancer that are associated with our 7 viruses. Now, let's look at the 7 facts that are associated with those 7, the 7 facts about the 7 viruses that are associated with those type of cancers. Now, fact number 1, that viral cancers are biological accidents. So those viruses did not mean to cause a cancer during their life cycle. So it's just by accident that it happened that they cause cancer. So they are biological accident. They are biological accidents. What we mean is that none of those oncogenic viruses includes induce tumors as a fundamental part of their viral life cycle. So it was not their initial intention during their replication, their life cycle, to decide to harm the host. So it just happened as an accident. Then all 7 of these viruses cause infection, causing infection. They first cause an infection, and they are transmitted without the majority of infected persons develop neoplasia. So what we mean is that although they cause all infection in people, but not all people infected by those oncogenic viruses develop cancer. Okay, so you can also find other people with the presence of those viruses without developing cancer. So the accident can happen in some people with specific underlying conditions. They will be able to develop a cancer. So we are saying that those viral cancer are biological accidents. That's factor number 1. Factor number 2 is that there is an absence of virion production from the tumor cells. So the tumor cells that are developed do not produce virion that are the product of the viral replications. So what we mean is that active virus replication, when you become exposed to the virus, the initial phase is the lytic phase, where the virus will actively replicate in your body. And this will trigger the host immune response to take place, okay? And but now, when the tumor happen to develop, when the patient will develop a cancer, viruses are then trapped into the tumor cells, and they will then remain silent. So that's what we call a latency phase, you know. And the only way we can see that those viruses are associated with the development of this tumor is that they produce specific proteins that we can measure in the blood, that we call oncoprotein or viral oncoproteins that are developed. Okay, so that's factor number 2. Factor number 3, viral cancers occur as chronic infections. So it always happens during chronicity of the infection. You can have acute infection, you can get healed or recover from the acute infection, but if you develop a chronic persistent infections, there is a possibility that you will develop a viral cancer. So all of those human cancer viruses are capable of developing prolonged or persistent infections. For some of these viruses, like your EBV and MCV infection, the infection is generally thought to be lifelong. So there is a lifelong infection. But for hepatitis B and C, it is likely that smoldering infection are responsible for chronic inflammation. Then the patient will progress to cirrhosis. Then it will secondary lead to a liver cancer. So that prolonged viral persistence increase the likelihood for required secondary condition that then change a silent viral infection into a symptomatic cancer. Remember, in the active phase of the virus, when there is a lytic phase, the virus replicates much more actively. Then when the cancer starts developing, it will become trapped into the cancer cells, will stay in a latent phase. Then only that you will then see the cancer development. And this is what we commonly found in patients with Kaposissarcoma, especially when the HIV patient reach the 8th stage, they develop Kaposissarcoma. So it really reflects the loss of immunologic control over the virus. So your body lose control over the virus. Fact number 4, target cell specificity of oncogenic viruses. Those viruses, some have affinity with specific cells or specific organs. Others can have tropism or affinity with different cells. So what we are saying is that neoplasia induced by tumor viruses reflect viral cell tropism. So For some viruses, this is highly restricted, such as hepatitis B virus that only target hepatocellular carcinoma. So the hepatitis B only targets the liver. So it's very specific. The virus has affinity with a specific hepatic cells. If you have also like HTLV1 virus only infect a specific subtype of the CD4 T-cell, what we could causing adult T-cell leukemia. So it only targets those specific cells. It has affinity with only those specific cells. But in contrast, like your papillomavirus, human papillomavirus, can infect mainly the cervix, causing the cancer of the cervix, but it can also it can also develop cancer in the head, the neck, anal region. So it's all because of human papillomavirus. So this has affinity in a different type of cells. It's not only a specific area. So it's the same like your KSHV and your Epstein-Barr virus. They also have a range of tissue reservoirs from which tumors can arise. Fact number 5, it's about the immune control of viral tumors. So what that means is that nearly all viral cancers that have been described so far have increased incidence among immunosuppressed persons. So all those viruses causing cancer, they mainly develop cancer in patients who are immunosuppressed because of any reason. That's why in countries of sub-Saharan Africa where the VIH, the level of HIV or the HIV prevalence is extremely high. In those countries, we see high incidence of cancer as viral cancers. So we see high incidence. This is evident for those viruses like your HTLV1, HPV, MCV, EBV, KSHV, 1, 2, 3, 4, those 5 out of 7 that we describe are mainly prevalent, highly prevalent in areas where HIV prevalence is extremely high. That's where you find the development of this cancer. So it happened because the patient lose their immune system. The immune system is very weak. Then they develop this type of cancer. So there's the cancer registry studies of AIDS and transplant patients have been critical in identifying potential infectious cancer and contributed directly to the discovery of tumor viruses. So mainly in patients with AIDS and also in renal units where you have patients who underwent kidney transplant or other organ transplant, liver transplant, and because of their weak immune system. But in addition to that, aging is also another factor that plays a major role here. Advanced age, because advanced age is also associated with a weak immune system. So people who are very old, they also tend to develop the same cancer because their immune system is also low. Fact number 6, all those viral cancers have non-infectious cofactors. It means that they don't cause cancer by themselves. They need to be associated with other cofactors, other reasons that help them to develop cancers. So non-infectious cofactors, including mainly the age. So we spoke about advanced age. There are also genetic factors that play a major role. There are environmental factors. There is also a problem with the immune system that becomes weak. So those are mainly the key factors: age, genetics, the environment, and your immune system. Those are factors that largely influence those viruses to develop cancer or to cause cancer. They cannot otherwise do it on their own. So there are different mutations that predispose, for example, for the development of infection, like when you have mutation in the genes that are encoding with EVA1 or EVA2, you know, for beta HPV related epidermal dysplasia, you know, so those are associated with the development of cervical cancer, or the other one when you have a mutation in gene SH2D1A for EBV related X-linked lymphoproliferative disorder. So when you find those genetic challenges, genetic defects, the patient will be prone to develop a cancer. Environmental exposure can be the diet. I spoke about maize. People who eat maize that is not well stored, for example, it contains aflatoxin, and we have also peanut. You know, peanut is also, so those are associated with hepatitis B related hepatocellular carcinoma. So the cancer of the liver, you know, it's associated with the development of the cancer of the liver. And we also spoke about the effect of malaria that weaken children's immune system in Africa mainly, and they develop a childhood acute lymphoma. So that's what we see. So this is fact number 6. Now, fact number 7, and the last one, is that viral cancers are predominantly a public health burden in developing countries. We used to think that the problem was major in developed countries, but now we see that this is becoming a public health challenge in developing countries. So while wealthy nations in Europe and North America generally have low viral cancer burdens, so infection can cause over 1/2 of cancers in some developing countries. So in developing countries, almost half of the cancers that we see are because of those viruses that we mentioned. So the types of cancer in developing countries vary widely and are influenced by concurrent patterns, and especially one major leading issue is HIV and AIDS that lead to immunosuppression of patients, leading to the development of the cancer. So among persons from sub-Saharan Africa who have historically had a high endemic rate of Kaposi-associated Kaposissarcoma infection, or AIDS Kaposissarcoma, or any other type of cancers in sub-Saharan Africa, it's mainly the result of HIV pandemic that lead to the development of some of the cancers that we see in sub-Saharan Africa. So thank you very much. So this was quickly about 7 facts that are associated about the 7 viruses causing cancer. And please leave a comment or a question and we will respond to that. Don't forget to follow the part 2 of this lecture, where we will then discuss a specific cancer, and we will start in the second lecture, we will discuss the cancer of the cervix, the cervical cancer, that is one of the predominant cancer in women. Thank you very much. Bye for now.